What's up, guys? Welcome back to Dear Traveler, the series where I discuss your comments on Destiny. Before we start, make sure you leave your own ideas, hopes, and wishes for Destiny in the comments below this video for a chance to be featured in the next episode. With that out of the way, let's start off this one with a comment from Achilles1400. He's the one who suggested the name Vanguard Report for the series, which was actually, of course, for this series here, Dear Traveler, but I thought the name was better suited to the recap, so I used it there. But of course, huge thanks to him for the name. I really like that name a lot. And his ideas are Assassinations, unlockable by Glimmer/rank, multiple classes for ships, starfighter, gunship, transport, etc., ability to eavesdrop on multiplayer matches publicly, like an arena, interrogate intelligent AI, to capture and jail enemies for intel, codes, loot, locations, and enemy positions, and to have multiple approaches to interrogation. Success rate varies on species. Alright, that's actually some interesting things there. Assassinations, unlockable by Glimmer/rank. Of course, assassinations are pretty popular. I see a lot of comments asking for that. And I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be in Destiny, you know, kill moves of some sort. And unlocking new ones, I would think it's probably by like some XP thing, like your rank or, you know, I don't know, some other experience bar, not so much by Glimmer, but I can see that definitely being in the game. And I know, like I said, it is very popular and it shouldn't be too hard to put in. So yeah, I would expect to see that. And then multiple classes for ships. We actually, I think we already know that that's going to be in Destiny. There's way back in February when Destiny was first revealed, they said that the ships shown were scout class ships, which led me to believe that there's going to be more. I mean, I don't think they would have specified that they're scout class ships unless there was going to be more ships in the future. What other classes there might be, I don't know. I still kind of doubt we'd get any huge, just giant like battleship kind of things. I don't really feel we're going to have those. Although it would be awesome. I certainly would love to have that, but I don't know if we are, especially not in the first Destiny game. But I do think we'll be getting multiple ship classes, especially, like I said, since they already said we have Scout class. So I'm sure there's going to be more. And the idea, as you said, Starfighter, Gunship, and Transport, those are all quite viable in my opinion. I think those are all, could definitely be in the game. They're not too far-fetched. And then ability to eavesdrop on multiplayer matches publicly. I'm guessing you mean like a spectate type feature. If there was an arena in a city where battles took place, then I think a spectate feature would be pretty much logical. I would assume that would be there. But a recent information, an interview with Urk from Bungie indicates that we won't be having an arena type thing like that. It's not going to happen in the city. The competitive multiplayer will just happen out in the world. Like you'll be going on a strike or a raid or story mission, and you'll encounter competitive multiplayer out in the world. We don't really know how that's going to work yet. I'm still very, very confused. But if that is the case, and it's out, if competitive multiplayer occurs all over out in the world, then I don't really think a spectate feature would work very well in that case. But if there is any sort of arena in the city, then I think spectating would be a natural thing to have there. And I still hope to see something like that in the game. And interrogate intelligent AI. That's an interesting one. I don't really know how that would work. I'm guessing you mean enemy AI. We haven't really seen much of AI in Destiny, aside from the Ghost, which is our companion, obviously. And then the Vex are sort of like an AI in themselves, I guess. They're robots. But other than that, we haven't really seen a whole lot on AI, but I'm guessing that some of the alien races will have them. The Fallen, possibly, they seem likely that they might have AI to run their ships or something. The Cabal, maybe, I don't really know exactly. But I think it's likely that we'll see enemy AI, and to be able to interrogate them is pretty interesting. I don't know how high up on the list that would go, but that does sound pretty cool for sure. And then to capture and jail enemies for intel, codes, loot locations, and enemy positions. That sounds quite interesting as well. Probably a lot more likely than the AI idea, to be honest. It just seems like it'd be more like appealing to the general audience, in my opinion. It's something people would be more likely to do, it seems like. I don't know how exactly that would work. That would make for interesting gameplay, like somehow using different tactics to take an enemy alive. And say a Fallen, you're attacking a Fallen, and you have to somehow, I don't know, stun them, knock them out, capture them. I don't know what you do, and then take them in your ship and take them back to the city or something. I don't know what you would do or how you'd do that, but to be able to capture enemies would be pretty interesting. and to be able to get information for sure, like like you said, codes, loot locations. That's all certainly stuff that the enemies might know that would be valuable to get. So that'd be pretty cool. I definitely like that idea. And then the last one, to have multiple different approaches to interrogation. Success rate varies on species. That sounds pretty interesting if Destiny supports interrogation at all. We haven't seen any indication of interrogation yet, but if Destiny had, supported that, then I would imagine multiple approaches to it would be pretty standard. I don't think they would just be like, hit an interrogate button and just it would go. I would imagine you'd have some choices you could make, I would hope. But again, we don't know anything about that yet, or if Bungie has any interest in having an interrogation like capture feature in the game. But that would be pretty cool to see, and yeah, I think multiple approaches to it, again, would be pretty standard if they supported interrogation at all. Anyways, that's it for the comment. Once again, thank you very much, Achilles, for the suggestion of the Vanguard Report name. I seriously appreciate it. I really like the name, and it helped me out a lot, so thank you very much. On to the next comment, which comes from Cheshire, I think. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. Who says, Dear Traveler, I want to swim and not die. This is a pretty popular one, as you can see by the upvotes, and I've seen it posted before as well, I believe, or variants of it. And of course, that would be pretty cool. It's always frustrating in Halo how you walk out just, a couple feet and you just die, and it's just kind of silly. But I would think Destiny wouldn't have those kind of restrictions, I hope. I mean, yeah, it seems like it would kind of break the immersion and, the kind of atmosphere Bungie's going for with Destiny if we have such a wall like that where you just get insta-killed. I definitely hope kill barriers and stuff won't be a big thing in Destiny, because they kind of kill the exploration factor. But yeah, to be able to swim and not die would definitely be a cool feature in Destiny, and I think it's very, very possible, probably very likely, that that Destiny will support that. Moving on to the next comment, which comes from Jesse, who says, Dear Traveler, I want my faction choice to matter. What I mean is, I want the faction I choose to affect my world/story. I want different bonuses or items or skins based on the faction I choose. I want faction-specific quests. I also expect the name of the faction to be the foundation of the faction's goals. I want a faction to have influence. Maybe a store owner gives me a discount or markup. I will most likely choose New Monarchy. The name just sounds badass. What faction will you choose? So, having your faction choice affect the world and story, I think that's probably going to happen. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. We know very, very little about the factions so far. I mean, literally, like, all we know is the name and the logos. And then I think also in an interview with someone, I don't remember who offhand, perhaps it was Joseph Staten maybe, he said something like, if you're interested in a faction, you'll be able to... You'll certainly be able to heighten your association with that faction in-game, or something along those lines. I could be wrong, but something like that, he said. And that's about all we know about factions so far. But I think we certainly should be able to see an effect of our faction in the game to some extent. Again, it's hard to say how much because we really know nothing about them yet. But as you said, different bonuses or items or skins based on the faction, that I definitely think will happen. That seems very likely that we'll have certain things that will only be accessible in the faction of our choice. Certain faction branded items or apparel or, whatever gear. And then faction specific quests. I would imagine that's going to be kind of a point of the faction. I mean, I would think the whole thing about joining a faction is I imagine it's going to have some kind of a goal, an ideal, and, you're going to be trying to achieve that goal or ideal or maintain it. And that would mean, going out to doing missions to increase your power or influence on the world or accomplish what you need to do, you know what I mean? I imagine quests would be kind of a given. And then I think the other thing in factions might have to do with, might have a big part in is competitive multiplayer. Maybe, I don't know. But I'm thinking like, we've seen faction wars as a game type thing. So I would think faction wars might be a large-scale PvP mode, perhaps. That's just my speculation anyways. But getting back on topic there, faction-specific quests definitely seem like a given to me, or certainly very likely. Then he says, I also expect the name of the faction to be the foundation of the faction's goals. I would think that'd be the logical thing. I mean, they're not just going to pick a name out of nowhere. I'm sure the faction's names do have something to do with the faction itself. Like you said, you want it to be New Monarchy. I'm sure New Monarchy is something about, you follow a monarch, you want to set up a new monarchy. I imagine I would definitely imagine that's going to be based around the faction's goals. I don't think they'd just pick that name out of nowhere. And then, what was the next one there? Faction having influence. You mentioned a store owner giving you a discount or a better markup. I would certainly like to see that. If the faction, if the store you're going to or the vendor you're going to is associated with that faction, then I would imagine he should like you more. He should give you a better deal on certain things. Maybe even give you access to a few items that other people can't. I don't know, something. But either way, definitely give you special privileges because he would, you're part of the same faction. I think that certainly seems logical, and I hope to see something like that in the game. The only thing is, we don't really know much about the faction's influence in the city yet, although we have seen faction flags in concept art in the hangar, in the tower, and I think even in this city concept art that we've seen, actually. I believe we've seen the New Monarchy flag in different places, so I believe that the factions do have some influence in the city itself, in which case you should have, hopefully have, vendors that are associated with those factions, and then, like you said, getting discounts or better markups with those vendors would be the logical thing. And then he asks what faction I will choose. I don't really know yet. I'm just going to have to wait for some more information. New Monarchy definitely sounds cool. That was one of the ones I was interested in. Also, Seven Seraph sounds pretty cool. Osiris sounds interesting. But I don't really know yet. I'm going to have to wait and see what the factions really stand for, what their goals are, what influence they really have. I'm not going to make a decision before I really know what they're about. Continuing on, the next comment comes from Sean, who says, Dear Traveler, so far we've seen Guardians wearing various types of rugged armor, all of which appear to be clean in almost pristine condition. I would like my Guardian's armor to look rugged, dark and almost weathered looking, like I've been through hell and back battling enemies across the galaxy. I love the renditions of the Hunter shown in the GDC vid. Let me be the Clint Eastwood of the last safe city. So I would have to agree, the Guardians we've seen so far do all look like they're in pretty nice shape. They're not really worn out. But I would hope that's a customization option, like we could adjust the wear and tear on our armor aesthetically, for just for looks. And then, if not that, perhaps we could find old gear and armor that's actually been through hell and back that we could wear, and it would show that damage and wear and tear on it. I certainly hope to see that in the game. I know I can see a lot of people wanting to look more like that kind of badass rugged character. So I hope to see that in the game. Moving on to the next comment from Davuth, or Davuth, I'm sorry, I don't really know, who says, Dear Traveler, how are they going to make the public events a challenge? I played Defiant shortly for the PS3 and found the public event equivalents of that game were incredibly easy and required very little skill. Are the events going to be a certain level, or are they going to be a random level? This could make it incredibly easy for high levels or insanely hard for someone who is jumping into the game for the first time. So I wouldn't really compare Destiny to Defiance, to be honest. I know it's kind of a common comparison I see a lot because Defiance is kind of the only real console MMO and that people have seen. So I can see why that comparison is there, but to be honest, I personally don't consider Defiance to be a very good game, or something Destiny should be compared to. But to address your actual question there, I wouldn't really worry about it, to be honest. I think Bungie will have some way to balance it out. What they'll do exactly, I don't really know. One idea I had was that they could, the engine could sort of take into account everybody's level, all the players in the event. It could like tally all them up and average them out to sort of make an average level to base the enemies on for the entire event. I don't know if they would do something like that. I don't really know how the whole matchmaking type systems really work. I don't know anything about those systems really, but either way, I really wouldn't worry about it. I think Bungie will have, they'll make it work somehow for sure. And then you also asked if the if the events would be level locked, and I don't think they would be, to be honest. I think they're probably going to be open to a lot of different levels to join. Bungie has said that they don't want to put walls in the way of friends playing together, and then I think they've also said that they want to make interesting combat experiences where you're going to pair up with players you wouldn't normally meet. So I think all of that points to non-level locked events that a lot of different players of different types can join together into. But again, I think they'll have some good way to balance it. I'm really not worried about that. Continuing on, the next comment comes from Norman101, who says, Dear Traveler, I want Destiny to have a shield system like Halo 2 and 3. And then he asks, what do I think the health system will be like in Destiny? And then another awesome feature would be that as your fire team, you could become a guild or clan of some sort. That way, if Destiny has a multiplayer, they could have a community/competitive game types, which you could join with your guild to be the top team in Destiny. Maybe get featured in that newspaper you were talking about. So, a shield system like Halo 2 and Halo 3. And then the next one kind of runs together with this, a health system. What would the health system be like? We have no idea what the health or shield system will be like in in Destiny. And I don't really have any speculation there, to be honest. In some prototype heads-up displays we did see a shield bar. But then in the most recent heads-up display, the updated one that we saw in the VidOc, the latest VidOc, there was no shield bar on the heads-up display. So I'm not really sure what they're doing, if they're, juggling around with getting rid of it, what their plans are for that. I really don't have a clue. But I personally like the Halo 2, Halo 3 style, like you said, where you have a visible bar on the screen that you can see how well your character is doing. I'd much rather have that than just like indications on the screen, like, oh, how red your screen is or stuff like that. I certainly, would much rather have a bar like that where I can get a better idea of what's going on. And then, I mean, Destiny is, a sci-fi game way in the future, so I would hope that our characters would have shields. I mean, that would make sense to me. And it also helps explain why our characters, can, like, withstand so many bullets and stuff. Whereas, like, in most modern military games, it's like, it doesn't make any sense as to how you can take all these shots and survive. It's just, it's a random gameplay element. But in sci-fi games where you have shields, it's actually logically, explained, and it makes sense. You got this shield, it protects you, so it makes perfect sense. So I personally like shields. I've always been a fan of shields, and and since it's a sci-fi game, I hope our characters will have shields, and I certainly think they should. And then for the health system again, I really have no idea what the health system might be like. We haven't seen any indication of like health packs or health bars in the game or anything like that. So I don't know. I don't think we're going to have an actual health system like that, but I really have no idea. We'll just have to see. And then guilds and clans, basically confirmed. I guess I'll leave a link in the description below to a video I made a while back. In the first VidOc, we saw a squad menu type screen, which had a bunch of information on it. One of the things on there was guilds, like player guilds, and I take that as pretty much confirmation that we can have guilds in Destiny. And again, I'll link that in the description below for anyone who hasn't seen that video. It definitely makes it look like guilds, as well as having multiple guardians, multiple characters you can have on one profile, and a bunch of other stuff as well. There's a bunch of stuff in that video, so I'll leave a link to that. Some of it may be slightly outdated, but overall it's still worth seeing if you've missed it. On to the next comment from Chai Chai, who says, Dear Traveler, I want there to be an underwater city, and also maybe vehicles that you can drive underwater. Marine life in video game equal badass. That would be pretty cool. It also goes along with what the one of the initial comments said, being able to swim and not die. I would definitely like to see, underwater environments. That sounds really cool. I don't know if that's something they would be able to put into the initial game, because that's like a whole another, like, I don't know, it feels like that's like a whole bunch more coding in a way to make that work. I don't know, I could be wrong, but that feels like that'd be a lot of work to get that in the game. So I kind of would understand if it wasn't in the game right away, but maybe as DLC or something. But either way, I would certainly like to see underwater areas. I think that would be quite cool. And then underwater vehicles, that'd be pretty awesome to be able to drive a submarine around, or I don't know, do you call it driving? You're not exactly driving it. Is it piloting? I don't know what you call. I don't know the naval terms and stuff, but being able to like control a submarine or different futuristic undersea vehicles does sound pretty awesome, and I would certainly love to see that in the game. And then to be able to explore underwater, marine environments, that's just like a whole nother world. I mean, that's there's a lot you could do and a lot you could find, and I don't know, that does sound really, really cool, and I would really like to see that in the game. But again, like I said before, that does also seem like a lot of work, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see it, at least not right away. The next comment comes from the Sponge467, who says, Dear Traveler, I would like to see some wildlife in Destiny. Like when you're attacking a stronghold and then suddenly a creature of some sort attacks you, making your fight more difficult. And these creatures should have some sort of valuable things like pelts, which you can use to craft armor or something along those lines. And then he also says, P.S. By the way, love your vids. Been watching since you started out. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the, compliments like that. I read most, I don't know if everyone knows this, but I really do read the vast majority of comments. I mean, I would argue that I read not probably like 99% of comments. I mean, I read a lot of comments, especially on new videos. Like I don't really keep up on old videos because I just I can't keep checking them. But generally, every time I release a video, I read every single comment for like the first day or two that it's released. Whenever I have time, and even going back, my latest couple videos, I definitely read a lot of comments. And even if I don't always reply, you read all your compliments, and I really, really appreciate them. So thank you all very much. It means a lot whenever I see, encouraging comments. It's really nice to see. And of course, he says he's been watching since I started out. I also really appreciate that as well. My videos were not very good when I first started out, to be honest. I certainly am not proud of them when I go back and, and go watch them. So I'm definitely thankful to the people who actually subscribed way back then when I was, when I just started out and I wasn't doing a very good job. But of course, I'm just as thankful to everyone who subscribes right now as well, obviously. But like I said, I just don't think my videos back then were very good. So it kind of means a lot that you actually subscribed, because I didn't do a very good job following Destiny back then, and my videos were not the highest quality. Anyways, on to the actual comment. He says, he's talking about wildlife. Yeah, wildlife in Destiny would be awesome. So far, we've seen birds, and I would hope to see a lot more than that. Having wildlife actually like come out and attack you randomly, sure, that'd be really cool. And also having friendly wildlife would be pretty cool as well. Even tameable wildlife, maybe that would be pretty awesome. I don't know if we're gonna have pets or not, obviously, but anyways, the next thing you say is valuable things on the animals like pelts, which you can craft armor or something along those lines. I don't know about making pelt armor in a sci-fi environment. I don't think leather armor is really gonna keep you safe from from lasers and well, actually we haven't really seen lasers, but all of the high-tech weapons in Destiny's universe. I don't think pelts are really going to keep you safe, but still being able to get valuable items from animals if they attack you, and being able to somehow maybe process them even and make cool items out of them that you could either sell or use. Certainly, again, I don't think it'd be armor, but maybe it'd be used in armor, pieces of armor like straps and things, and then to be able to use for non-armor things. Like, I don't know what it would be. I can't think of anything offhand. But, cool non-armor things that you could craft. And then, obviously, sell as well would be nice, too. I certainly like the idea. And, yeah, I imagine that Destiny will have wildlife. Again, we've seen birds. I imagine there will be quite a bit more than that. I certainly hope there will be. And I definitely wonder, if it'll be wildlife that we know from today, or if there's new alien wildlife that, was introduced or what. But certainly interesting to see, and I hope to see quite a bit of wildlife in the game. Definitely makes the world more immersive. Moving on, the next comment comes from Alistor, who says, I think a government system that Guardians could take part in would be very interesting, like a council where players could vote on laws of the city and frontier. I quite like this idea, actually. I think that would be really cool if we could vote on important issues, and maybe even vote on leaders and leaders of the city and everything like that. It'd be an interesting thing it'd be an event that would happen in the Destiny world every so often, and we'd get some notification pushed to us to when we enter the game, or we go check some console, or like a digital newspaper type thing or whatever it would be. We get some like notification that would tell us that something this is happening, and we'd have different options of who we wanted to represent us, and like what they what their goals were for for humanity, for the city, I mean. And then to be able to vote on laws, sure, that'd be really interesting. I don't know how that would work, because I can see that being kind of difficult. Like, anytime we voted on something, Bungie would have to hurry up and code in whatever we voted on, which would be kind of complicated. But if they can make it work, I would certainly love to see that in the game. I think that would add a whole nother layer of realism and immersion to it. If there's some way they can make that work, I think that would be really cool. The next comment comes from Michael, who says, Dear Traveler, random attacks on the main city by one of the enemy races. Examples could be the Cabal, Vex, and the Fallen. It would show that we are still under a lot of pressure from outer threats, and have the Guardians nearby to defend the city and work together. The idea sounds really cool, actually, to have to kind of like quickly get an alert, like, oh no, the city's under attack, and have to quickly defend it, possibly even having to drop whatever we're currently doing, out in the world and have to quickly return home to defend the city. That would be quite a cool thing to happen randomly at different times. The only thing is, the traveler is supposed to protect the city. So I don't know how that would work, and it's possible the traveler would prevent attacks of that sort from coming, from hitting the city. I don't know what that really would mean, how exactly the traveler protects us, or if there's some way the enemies could still get through that. But that's definitely the main thing that I can see stopping them is the traveler. But as a gameplay element, having to have to go and quickly get together and defend the city does sound really cool. I would like to see that. And then the next comment comes from Nathan, who says, Dear Traveler, I would like to see a distress beacon that you could activate if you run into trouble in a public area. It would give anyone in the area a waypoint to your location as long as you're still alive, or turn it off. I really think this would fit Bungie's social community goals for Destiny. I mean, how awesome would it be to meet other players by rescuing them, or by bailing you out at the last second? That sounds actually really cool, to be able to just randomly go through the world and then see a little icon like, oh, a player needs help, and quickly rush over there and help them out. That's something that would be quite awesome to see. And maybe I could see it being exploited as well if there was a way that they could troll people. They'd call you over and be like, hey, come help me out, and then it would be some way to troll you. And I don't know. I know Bungie is putting in, is doing things to prevent griefers and trollers. How they'll do that, I'm not really sure. We don't know specifics yet, other than the fact that they want to sort of discourage trolling to begin with by using, I guess, good game design and stuff. But I like the idea overall. I can see it being even more common with people already on your friends list. I can see it being a beacon kind of thing you put up, oh, I want to play with my friends, and then as soon as anyone comes onto Destiny, it would be oh, your friend really wants you to join in, or your friend needs help, and then you could just pop in and drop in and help them out. I can see that definitely being in the game, based on your friends. But then for a beacon that would go out to all players in your area, that does sound like it does sound like a pretty cool idea, and I just wonder how it would work. I mean, public events are sort of like matchmaking, basically. It's an automatic matchmaking. Just because you're in a public event right there at that time doesn't mean there's not another one happening right there as well. Literally, at least that's the way I see it from what we know so far. It seems like there could be 10 of the same public event going on in the same place at the same time with a bunch of different people, and it'd be simultaneous. They're in the same world technically, but they're in separate server environments. But back to your actual idea, a distress beacon that just goes out to everybody around you. I would like to see that. It would be quite cool to have, but I can see logistical problems with making that work. Because the public events, they're not an open area where hundreds of players can get together. It's basically seamless matchmaking. The matchmaking system finds players in that area who would match well together, and then it makes a public event for them, and it kind of pops them all in. It's not actually an open area where hundreds of players can group up. So I can see that being a bit of a complication, because the server would have to somehow choose who it puts out the beacon to. I don't think it could put the beacon out to everybody. It would have to somehow narrow it down, and I really don't know how it would do that. But if there's some way that could make it work, I think that would be a really cool feature. But I do see complications. I don't know how easy that would be to do. Continuing on, the next comment comes from Moyo Spartan, who says, I want to build my own base in a place out of the city so I can build and upgrade weapons and armor. And I want sweet rolls. Don't we all want sweet rolls? Seriously, sweet rolls. Awesome. Just don't let anyone steal them, in Skyrim. Don't let them steal your sweet rolls. But back on topic, that would be really cool, and a lot of people obviously like the idea. It's got 25 upvotes. But I can also see it being quite complicated, and I don't know how it would work, or if it's even possible. Destiny, at least currently, in its current state, it's still up for debate. But in its current state, Destiny is not a free roam game. To go into areas, you have to have some sort of mission or task or errand or bounty, or basically in order to access areas of the world, you need some reason to go there, and then you'll fly there in your ship, and you'll go access it. You'll go to that location. And then once you're in that location, you can spend as much time there as you want doing whatever you want. And they'll make a lot of opportunities for you to keep going back, multiple missions and stuff to keep going back to same places. But As it stands right now, Destiny is not a completely open world game. You can't just go on a map and say, I want to go here and go there. So I think that would be a problem for building bases outside of the city, because you wouldn't just be able to go to them immediately. And then as for building them inside the city, I don't know if you'd be able to like have areas big enough to do that. I can see maybe houses perhaps in the city, but I don't know about actual bases. Overall, though, the idea does sound really awesome. It's something that obviously I think a lot of people would love to have, but at its current state, I don't know if Destiny could support it. And I definitely see complications. Even besides the open world aspect, there's also the complication of the, connected world thing. I mean, I don't know, you don't want players randomly like encountering your bases and everything unless your base was in a private area, perhaps. Maybe that could work. Maybe there could be private areas where only your fire team could go. Like you could make a fire team and then you can take your friends and your fire team to where your base was in a private area. Perhaps that would be possible. And that would be really cool to have, but I don't know if, from a technical standpoint, how hard that would be or if Destiny could currently support it. But if possible, definitely would like to see that. Next comment comes from Will, who says, Dear Traveler, I would love to use the mobile app to control the in-game marketplace. So if I get bored at school or work, I can search for the piece of armor or weapon I always wanted, buy it, and have it ready to go when I get home that night. Also, I hope in the city we can buy real estate. So after a long day of killing Fallen, I can go back to my place, sit down, and crack open a beer or two with the rest of my fire team. And then P.S. Thank you for taking the time to make these videos. Well, thank you very much for watching them. I appreciate all the support I always get. It means a lot. Anyways, the mobile app. Well, Bungie has said many times over that the mobile app will give us the means to meaningfully interact with the world. What that means, we don't really know, but they've hinted repeatedly, or not even hinted really, they've directly told us that the mobile app will be an important part of the, Destiny experience. You'll be able to do a lot from it, having to do with your Guardian. And if there is like a proper in-game marketplace that just is sort of like accessible from anywhere, then I can definitely see the app having access to that. If, on the other hand, the market is based on like vendors, you have to, walk around the city to go to their shops and access, then I can see that being a bit more complicated because I don't know if that would really work. But maybe, maybe it still could. You could click on, on your phone, you could hit a button for each, each vendor, each store, and then you could browse their gear and stuff and then purchase what you want. That seems like a very viable thing that they could do. It certainly doesn't seem too difficult. And since, they want the mobile app to be meaningful, that seems like a good way to do that for sure. And then buying real estate, definitely a big one. I would really like to have player housing, and a lot of other people would as well. This is not the first. I think it's even come up in the Dear Traveler before. But player housing is always a really big one. And then, of course, you've got 23 upvotes there. So obviously it's quite popular. Being able to own a piece of the game, like, you have a place in the game, it's yours. You can customize it. You can put what you want in there. Your stuff is like safe and secure in there. You can have all your loot. Like, that is a huge factor of RPG style games for me. Like, I don't know, like Skyrim having houses all over, like that is a huge thing for me, and I really love that. And Destiny, although it is primarily a first-person shooter, it also is mixing a lot of RPG and MMO elements. So I really hope we'll be able to have something like this. I mean, even like a room in the tower would be pretty cool, but an actual house you can buy would be even better. I mean, that would be awesome. And to be able to upgrade it like over time, that's like being able to invest in it. That'd be like a big thing that you'd want to save money for to improve it and make it look awesome. I mean, like, I don't know, that's a big thing for me. I would really love to have that in Destiny, and I don't really see any reason why they couldn't. It is technically, it's a technical. It's technically difficult to do, I'm sure, with servers and stuff, but a lot of other MMOs have done that, so I don't really see why Destiny couldn't. And the one thing, though, is the city is kind of limited. I mean, the city is not endless, so they would have to like somehow make the area where your house is like private. Like, I don't know how this would work, but like, say you own a particular area. If you go into that sector, then someone else who owns that area won't be in that server room. Like, I don't know, I'm not explaining this very well, but like I think the areas where you can purchase housing and stuff would have to be kind of like private, like areas that were copied over. I'm still not doing a very good job explaining this. Sorry. I don't think the areas where you could purchase real estate could be completely open because there wouldn't be enough spaces for everybody. So I think it would have to be somewhat private in a way. Hopefully, like you could still go outside and you could see like other people around, but like it would only be a small subset of people, and you'd perhaps like your character would be like put into like a little zone or like a server. I don't even know. I'm not even making any sense here, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Like, it couldn't be completely public. It would have to be somewhat private. And, like, obviously, if someone else owned the piece of property that you own, then they could never, like, show up in your place. Like, you could never meet by your house, like, because if you would own the same place, if that makes any sense. Because I definitely think people would have to be able to own the same places. There's no way they could make millions of unique places for every player. So people would definitely have to own the same houses, which obviously would mean that they couldn't be in the same area together. So again, it'd have to be somewhat privatized. But I would love to see that, absolutely love to see that, and I certainly hope that'll be in the game. Continuing on, the next comment comes from Mr. Christmas, who asks, "Do you think that there will be dual wielding like in Halo 3? Now, we haven't seen any indication of dual wielding in Destiny. I think we've seen the Fallen carrying two swords, perhaps, but that's, I think, the most we've seen. We haven't seen any Guardians carrying more than one weapon, like, per hand. Dual wielding is pretty cool, and I don't think it's a real difficult thing to implement, to be honest. I could see it being possible with smaller weapons, like dual wielding some pistols. That does sound pretty cool. And obviously they probably would have to be smaller. Like, I don't know if you'd be able to dual wield big hand cannons that are extremely powerful, but being able to dual wield smaller pistols and, lighter weapons does sound pretty cool. And it certainly doesn't seem like it'd be a real difficult thing to implement, and perhaps they already are implementing it, but we haven't seen any indication yet. We'll just have to see. The next comment comes from Lampshade, who's a great name there, by the way, who says, "Dear Traveler, I really liked the assassination animations from Halo, and would like to see more of that in Destiny. However, the kill move animations were not of immense variety. I would like to see a system where I can unlock kill moves based on how often I melee enemies, etc. I'd also like to see some gun designs look like the timeless classics, like AKs, M16s, Remington 870s, Garands, Mosin Nagans, 1911s, and even lever-action rifles." Now, assassinations, of course, were mentioned in the first comment of this video, and I certainly think they would be in the game to some extent, some sort of kill move. But like you said, more variety would definitely be nice, and like the first comment also said, unlockable. But he suggested unlockable based on currency or rank, and you're saying based on how often you melee and different gameplay elements. That would be quite a cool way to unlock them, in my opinion. I definitely like the sound of that. To be able to unlock different style of kill moves based on your style of play does sound pretty awesome. And then as for the gun designs, it would be cool to have some classic weapons. I mean, of course, I'm a big fan of a lot of those guns. AKs and M16s are really cool. They're all really cool. 1911 pistol is probably my favorite pistol ever. I mean, I don't know, something about that gun looks amazing in my opinion. But at the same time, Destiny is so far into the future, I don't know if they would really bother with it, to be honest. But I don't know. It would be pretty cool. Something more likely I can see being a possibility would be gun designs that sort of vaguely resemble them. Like, if you looked at it closely, you can see, yeah, this looks familiar, I recognize this. But at the same time, wouldn't be like a direct remake either. Something like that does seem possible, but I kind of doubt we'd be seeing direct recreations of current modern day guns. On to the final comment of this episode, which comes from Lollypopulo, who says, "Dear Traveler / Vanguard Report," because he actually commented this on the Vanguard Report video. He says, "Stealth, optional. And then if your armor gets damaged, it should be gameplay consequences." And then he says, "Pretty sure I didn't type that right." I don't know what you're doing there then. You could have just retyped it, but okay. I guess you're trying to be silly there. See what you're doing. Anyways, for example, if the helmet gets damaged, some of your HUD will sort of get scurry and your visor gets a bit broken. And of course, it should be repairable. And then customizable ghost, voice shape, and size. And then already mentioned in your old videos, true, but it's such an awesome idea that it has to be mentioned twice. And then open beta, also mentioned in a previous video, one of my first ones, I think. But also an awesome thing that should, it's worth mentioning twice. Everyone wants an open beta. And then he also says, love you, Destiny updates. And I love you too, man. I love all you guys. You're all awesome. All your support's amazing. Anyways, let's take a look at this. First off, stealth. Stealth should definitely have a place in the game. I see this popping up a lot. It's a popular request. And stealth should definitely be a factor. Stealth gameplay is, of course, a fun type of gameplay, experimenting around with perhaps silenced weapons and, sneakily taking enemies out. Of course, stealth is definitely something that I think most games should have to some extent. And Destiny is all about playing the way you want to play. So if you want to play stealthy, then it should support you playing stealthy, which I imagine it will. And then, if your armor gets damaged, it should have gameplay... Oh, no, I'll read it like he says. If your armor gets damaged, it should be gameplay consequences. Okay, it is a good idea, right? And it adds immersion, and it makes the game really realistic, and it is a cool idea. But I can see it getting pretty annoying as well. I don't really want to be, just starting out on a big, long raid or mission that's going to take, an hour, and then have my visor broken and, messed up for the whole rest of the mission, and I gotta struggle to see and deal with it. I don't know. And then obviously repairable, but it'd be repairable from the tower or something, or from your ship, I'd imagine. I mean, unless there's a way you can repair it on the field, which would be a little bit interesting, I suppose. Maybe that might work. The main thing I see there is I just wouldn't want to be stuck with a broken visor for a long portion of time. That'd be really annoying. But if there's a way we could repair it on the field, that might be pretty cool. And overall, it is a good idea for sure. And then customizing your ghost's voice was talked about in a previous episode, as he pointed out. Certainly would be cool to be able to customize the voice of your ghost. I wouldn't mind if they were even, available as DLC later, DLC voices, especially since, if they wanted to get bigger actors in there, then that's not cheap. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had to charge. But just having a multitude of voices would be really cool. I still stand by what I said before. I really want Jen Taylor, voice of Cortana, to do my ghost. I know that might be kind of ripping off, not ripping off Halo, but sort of too much like Halo. But I would pay money for that for sure. But then he also says something interesting. He says shape and size, which I never thought of that before. That is pretty interesting. In the gameplay demo, when he pulled out the ghost, it's sort of this interesting angular design, and then it sort of expands out, and then it's it becomes this light orb with these little edges. It's quite interesting looking. To be able to customize that would be pretty cool, to make different shapes. And since it was a big light, it was a blue light, to be able to customize the color of the light, that would be pretty cool. We do know for a fact that ghosts are customizable. We just don't know to what extent yet. But definitely voice, huge one. I really want to be able to customize your voice. And it's not like Peter Dinklage's bad voice. He sounds awesome. I mean, I'm pretty damn happy to see him in there. That's really cool. And I'd be happy to use him for a long time. But after a while, I mean, any voice might get boring after a while, I think. I mean, I'd like to be able to change my voice, the voice of my ghost after a while. But then, like I said, the other ideas there, shape and size, those are both pretty interesting as well. And then the final one, open beta. Of course, everyone wants an open beta. I think it's great for the game, and of course, it's great for us players who really want to, have a chance to play it early. But more important than that, it really does, I think, help keep. It helps make the launch of the game a lot smoother and get rid of bugs and stuff. And Bungie president Harold Ryan basically, in an interview at one point, I think during E3, he made it sound. He basically said that we'll probably do a beta or something like that. When he was asked about it, he said something like, "We'll probably do a beta." So I think it will. Bungie did an open beta for, well, it's pretty much open. I mean, you had to buy ODST for it, but Bungie basically did an open beta for Halo Reach. And then I think, wasn't it open beta or fairly open beta for Halo 3? I don't actually know offhand, but I believe Halo 3 did have pretty much a public beta as well. So I would imagine, Bungie's last two games did. Why wouldn't Destiny? And you can already sign up for user research. I mean, I'll leave a link to that in the description below as well if you guys don't know about that yet. You can sign up for Bungie user research, and that gives you a chance to get access to beta stuff. And obviously, that's not open beta. That's, closed. But it's still, worth signing up for if you're interested. So, yeah. But I definitely think an open beta is very, very likely for Destiny. Anyways, guys, that's it for this week's Dear Traveler. I hope you enjoyed. I grabbed quite a few comments for this one, I thought. It seemed like it was a pretty long episode, so I hope you enjoyed that. And make sure you leave your ideas, hopes, and wishes for Destiny in the comments below. I noticed it has been starting to dwindle a bit. There's still quite a bit. There's still way more than I can feature, but over time, if it does start going down too much, then the show might not be able to be weekly anymore. So if you have ideas, make sure you post them if they're good, and repost ideas from before. If I didn't cover them, repost them if they're original, and there's a good chance they'll get featured later. Like there was a couple people this week who said that they've been posting since the beginning, and they got in. So it's definitely worthwhile reposting your ideas, because I can't feature every comment in every episode. It's just way too many. So again, repost. But that's it for this video. Once again, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.